Hey everybody, it's Kyle. Hey, today I want to share with you a quick story about a couple who was struggling with each other. And it reminded me so much of my wife and I early on in our relationship. And it wasn't exactly the same, but it was so eerily similar that it was interesting. And something that I said to the mom that I was consulting with, I think dramatically changed their family. And later on, she told me that it dramatically changed the way she saw her husband and helped them start to get along a lot better and really become a happier family. And it was this. So at the time, her son is 13 and very difficult, a strong-willed child. That's what we focus on, right? And was giving her a lot of problems. And her husband would go to work and she was with the son all day long, and it was the summertime, so even more time, very, very challenging behaviors. And when her husband would get home, she would tell him what had happened, and her husband would get angry and kind of go after her son. And, she described to me that she didn't like the way he would go after him, and the son would try to fight back. Boys, when they hit about the age of 13 or so, they think they're men, and they start moving in that direction of wanting to fight back sometimes. And that's what this son was doing, and it was getting a little bit more physical, I guess, than she liked it. She assured me he wasn't hitting his son, and there wasn't any of that, but it felt scary. And she was just complaining about her husband, and she didn't like that, right? And she was getting onto her husband about it. And so when she called me, it just reminded me so much of me and my wife, Shelly. And we had gone through something very similar in that I knew as a man that I could get my kids to do what I wanted them to do very quickly when they were little by them being scared of me. And ultimately, when they got to a certain age, they weren't scared of me anymore. And we had seen this kind of activity. And my wife and I had sat down and really talked about this. And it was, she brought to my attention, and it's so long ago, it's not even funny, but I remember she said to me, she said, "Listen, Kyle, I'm the visionary of the family, and I know you're the dragon slayer of the family." And I said, "What?" And she said, I want to project how our family wants to look, and you're the one that really goes to work and makes it look like that, right?" And she said she had heard somewhere, I guess, that there's two types of people. There's visionaries and dragon slayers, right? And we were lucky because my wife was a visionary and I was a dragon slayer, right? My job is to kill dragons. If there's a problem, I kill the dragon, right? And as I talked to this sweet lady, I said, "Oh, as soon as she told me what was happening, I said, 'Oh, he's killing dragons.'" And she said, "What?" And so I described, that analogy to her. And I said, "He loves you so much. He does not want you to have to face this kid doing this kind of stuff, his own son. And he wants to slay the dragon. And the only way he knows how to slay the dragon at this point is to pull out the sword and start going to work," right? And that can be a scary thing in a lot of cases. I said, probably the best thing to do, and you'll have to test this, but I said, first of all, be patient with him, because that's all he really knows how to do right now. And that was the same for me. That's all I really knew how to do until my wife taught me different. And so I said, what you've got to do is sit down and realize he loves you so much that he's trying to slay dragons for you. And the key to that is that he loves you so much. He doesn't come home and take the side of your son. He comes home and goes to work, right? Because there's a problem you're facing, and he's a dragon slayer. And so that's what he knows how to do. And I said, so just sit him down and talk to him and say, "Hey, listen, I know you're my dragon slayer and I know what's going on. And let's talk about how we can do this, how you can still slay dragons, but doing it in a way that's going to be more effective and show more love." And, in our family, we had this term, which is in the spirit of love, right? How can I do this in a spirit of love? And so she had a chance at that point to sit down with him, kind of go through that process and say, let's talk about how you can, when you get home, how I can tell you what's going on and you can address that and slay that dragon in a spirit of love. And I know that's a little weird, but ultimately it worked in our family, is the idea that I wasn't allowed to just lop off the dragon's head anymore. I had to do things in a spirit of love and think through. It's not like they do something brand new every day, right? They usually do the same patterns over and over and over. And the problem is we have patterns too. And so when they do X, we do Y. And those patterns become habits of ours, and nothing ever gets resolved. She's mad at her husband. She gets on her husband. Her husband is just trying to help, right? I mean, that's all it was. And so after doing that and them sitting down, and she had a chance to describe to him, and they had the chance to strategize together, you know, a better way for him to still slay dragons for her, to still be able to protect her and take care of her, and show that he loves her, just in a more kind way for his son. And she was able to give him some guidance, and he was able to negotiate. And that's a big part of it, right? Men and women do things differently in a lot of cases when it comes to kids. And so there is some negotiation and there's middle ground, but if you can come to an agreement on what would be best in a spirit of love, you're always going to get better results. And they did. And, you know, they reported back to me a couple of months later how it hit just dramatically. First of all, I hadn't had a chance to talk to the dad, but I got him on a Zoom call, and both of them were on the Zoom call. And she was thrilled because he was being more kind, but still, he was thrilled because he was still getting to slay dragons and show her how much he loved her. And she was now happier with him and wasn't fussing at him for just slaying the dragon in the most rough and tumble way he could, which is kind of all we know sometimes as men. So anyway, I just want to share that story with you. Hopefully that's helpful. You know, the takeaway is probably sometimes you know, and it could go either ways, but there's two types of people. There's visionaries who can look at something and see the future, and there's dragon slayers who put things in place to make it work, and their job is to get things done. And a lot of times those two can clash, and sitting down and deciding how you want to approach it the next time it happens is always a great thing, but especially if you can do it in a spirit of love. So hopefully that's helpful. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.